Hey everybody, my name is Ellen, and I'm here at the Las Vegas Natural History Museum. It's Hispanic-American Heritage Month, and I wanted to celebrate by talking about the life of successful botanist and all-around super cool lady, Cleofé Calderón. Cleofé Calderón was an accomplished agrostologist, or a botanist who specifically studies grasses, with a prolific yet surprisingly short career. Born in Buenos Aires, Argentina on October 26, 1929, Cleofé, or Cleo as her friends and colleagues called her, pursued a PhD in agrostology at the University of Buenos Aires. She never completed this course of study because in either 1961 or 62, she was offered the opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. She visited the U.S. National Herbarium in the Museum of Natural History, a department of the Smithsonian where there are currently millions of plant samples preserved for scientific study. It was here that Cleo met Dr. Thomas R. Soderstrom, a fellow botanist. Cleo and Tom teamed up and began making incredible contributions to the field of agrostology. Though their partnership was productive, it was also quite turbulent. Cleo and Tom both had strong personalities, and they often clashed. We'll talk more about that in just a bit. In the mid-70s, Cleo and Tom mentored a high school student named Lynn Clark. Lynn is now a botanist herself at Iowa State University. I got in contact with her and her adorable cat Winston, and she was gracious enough to tell me more about her relationship with the pair.
Her and Tom were kind of my first botanical parents. And so she was definitely a mentor. Tom was too, kind of in different ways.
So what would you say is what is one of your most vivid memories of spending time with her?
When she and I were in Ecuador, with all the collecting we had done, we had like 10 cardboard boxes of plant specimens. And we got to the airport quite early. And so we were among the first people to check in. So we got up there to the counter and she started explaining, we were botanists and we had, in fact, there was a big poster of this bamboo meeting right there on the wall. And she pointed to it and, we're here on very tight funds and so on and so forth. And they could have charged us a huge amount of money for excess baggage. So she talked the guy into checking all of our boxes in addition to our suitcases for no charge.
Wow.
So, yeah, okay, fine. We went on. We were in the waiting area. There was this older American woman sitting not too far from us, I guess talking to her husband or in a fairly loud voice. And she's like, you can't believe they charged us whatever the amount was for all this, for our baggage. It's just outrageous. And Cleo just elbowed me and she's like, shut up.
Oh my gosh.
Don't say a word. And, so somebody paid for our excess baggage, but it wasn't us.
During Cleo's active years, she spent much time in Central and Latin America studying and collecting samples of grasses, specifically bamboos. Her collections are known for being beautiful, as she was quite meticulous in her methods. She liked to take her time with measurements and writing notes, and she pressed or preserved plants on the spot instead of taking them with her. She also took photos of plant specimens in both color and black and white.
She would take her time and did that very meticulous process, not just for collecting plants, but also when she was analyzing the material, searching the literature, writing things up. So being very, very careful and making sure that she really understood things and had all the facts. Tom was at the other end of the scale. Even in the field, he would stride on through, like I think I mentioned, we called her Mrs. Magoo because she really did have poor eyesight. And so she would be slowly walking through.
This is why she often made surprising discoveries, like when she rediscovered the grass genus Animalcloa in 1976 with the help of her assistant Telmon dos Santos. Until Cleo came along, Animalcloa had not been seen alive by researchers since the 1850s. Cleo and Tom had been searching throughout Brazil for the genus for 4 years when Cleo happened upon it quite serendipitously. Tom described Cleo's rediscovery of the genus in a paper he published shortly after. Cleo felt a peculiar, or psychic as she put it, urge to stop near a particular wooded area. Not far into the woods, which bordered a cultivated area of cacao on somewhat rocky slopes, they came upon a colony of the grass. In 1979, Cleo spent about 6 months working in Brazil. When she returned, she had an explosive falling out with Tom.
I think it was finally that those differences in their personalities that finally just said, no, I can't do this anymore.
Tom removed all of Cleo's equipment from his lab and put it out in the hallway. Despite this setback, she continued to work in botany until about 1985. Then, in 1987, Tom passed away. Afterwards, Cleo severed herself from botany and the botanical community completely. The reasons for her departure are largely unknown, but Lynn speculates that it had to do with the fact that Cleo never finished her PhD. Without a PhD, Cleo would not have been competitive for a position at the Smithsonian, so she turned to working for a bibliographic service instead. When I asked Lynn why Cleo never finished her PhD, she was unsure why.
She had the capability. She could have gotten the PhD. She could have done a formal academic career, but for whatever reason, she didn't do that. And she never talked about that with me. So I don't know why maybe it never meant that much to her to get a formal paper as long as she could do what she wanted to do.
Cleo remained in D.C. until 2005 when she moved back to Argentina to be with her family. She passed away on March 19, 2007. I was surprised to find out that Cleo had left botany so suddenly, and that she had decided not to finish her PhD. From what Lynn told me, it seemed like Cleo was the type of person to get what she wanted and to not let anything stop her. Lynn directed me to Jimena Londoño, another botanist who was inspired to study bamboos by Cleofé after they met at a 1981 bamboo symposium in Colombia. Perhaps Jimena would know more about why Cleo left botany. I called Jimena, who currently lives in Colombia, on her farm. Jimena told me that she visited D.C. shortly after the 1981 symposium. She tried getting in touch with Cleo, but she received no response. Jimena never heard from Cleo again. Instead, Jimena ended up collaborating with Tom Soderstrom for several years. Cleofé Calderón may have worked in botany for only 20-ish years, but her impact on the study of bamboos is immense. Cleo's collections are still vital to bamboo and grass evolution studies to this day. Approximately 1,000 of her specimens are housed at the U.S. National Herbarium. She named 18 new species of grass and rediscovered the elusive Animalcloa. Lynn is currently working on naming a species after Cleo and another after Tom. I asked Lynn what she wanted people to remember about Cleo, and she said the following.
If you're open to working with people who aren't necessarily, don't necessarily have all the pieces of paper that you're supposed to have, you can still learn a lot. And she could be difficult sometimes, there's no question, but I always knew she was telling me the truth. She was telling me good information. It's just, there are many ways to have influence.
You may never know why Cleo suddenly decided to leave botany, but her contributions to the field will be remembered for generations to come.